Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to class today again. In our last class, we were doing the GIT, right? That was what we were doing, right? We talked about the stomach. We talked about the mouth part, right? And then we talk about which other part too. Remind me. Let me hear you. If you're in class last week, I need to hear you. What are the things we talked about last week, Friday? I'm listening. Anybody? Before we go back to today's classes today, so remember we also talk. We talk about it. It's okay. We talk about the pancreas too, right? You remember? Good, good. And then I stopped at which part? Which part did I stop at? If you follow me well, you know that I stopped at the small intestine, right? Right? Good, good. All right, good. Now, but to move to the large intestine, I quickly just did a rough sketch of this guy. This large intestine here. I don't want to waste more time. There's no point designing something, make it more fine, but I just make life easier. If you are asked that, how many parts do we have in the large intestine? Okay? Large intestine. If you are asked how many parts do we have, I need you to be smart. You see, there is a colon, there is a colon, there is a cecum, there is a rectum, all right? And there is a part, look at it, anal what? Anal canal. I need to explain a lot of things to you guys here. You see, now, like today now, I've been opportunity to be in a lab where we had to dissect some animals, Basically, animals, I had to do some dissection with some two different animals. Sometimes we had to do with rabbits. Then we had to use the lab rat, and then to dissect it to make it make sense. So we dissected the GIT today. I had to do that with a couple of some guys. And then we dissected the GIT in a rat to the intestine. The large intestine is closer to the small word, intestine. If you're not careful, what you will be calling large intestine is actually the what? The small word, intestine. Because let me ask you, between the large intestine and the small intestine, which one is the largest? The small intestine, correct. So the large intestine is just under the what? The small intestine. Large intestine is under the small intestine. And if you take the time to understand it well, with today's word, if you have been opportune to see such or being in the lab to be with such practicals, you will understand that the GIT of some animals are different, but it's the same thing. You will see the organs of small intestine, the stomach, and all of that. Now, let's come to today's one. If you are asked, large intestine consists of how many parts? Answer is colon, cecum, rectum, and anal canal. But what is the job of the large intestine? It's just to absorb water. Absorb water and then an electrolyte. Then help us with other necessary water nutrients. That's his job. Majorly is to help us absorb water. That's his job. Absorb water and then act as what? Electrolyte. But now, I said there are four things. It shows that this is the ascending side. This side is called the ascending side. Sometimes they call it ascending what now? Colon. You see, the ascending colon is where this guy is, the cecum. Okay? Colon are just the structures of the what? Of the large intestine that helps in the absorbing of what? Of water. So he absorbs the water. When he absorbs the water, he takes it down to the left side of the colon and then the descending colon. But there's a sigmoid colon here. Before the sigmoid colon is where you find your rectum. And then the rectum is like the temporary storage of feces. The temporary storage of your fecal action is what? Is the rectum. And in the rectum, there is a muscles there. That's why they've asked questions like the terminal portion. The terminal portion of the large intestine is what? Why is it called the terminal portion? It's because it is the last part of the what? The large intestine. Okay, it is the last part of the large intestine before the anal what? The canal. Or we say it is the second to the last. So the word terminal, your textbook has asked you that the terminal portion The terminal portion of the GIT, your answer will be what? Will be rectum. When you're terminal portion, then obviously they were talking about rectum. Did you get me? Did you get what I'm trying to say now? So you need to be smart. You need to be smart with what you're doing. You need to be smart with what you're doing, and you need to have a very broad understanding about this. Because one thing is this. One thing you need to understand is that if you know about the large intestine, you know what everything is doing, you understand the principle of how the food goes within your body system. Now, one thing I told you during the time of the stomach is that there's a pyloric sphincter. The pyloric sphincter in the stomach opens to receive the food. But when the stomach is satisfied and it can no longer take other food stuff inside it, it closes and every other food goes directly down to the rectum. Do you get? And then you do what they call defecation or egestion. So this one, job, absorb. Absorb water. Generally, we know that's what the whole large intestine is to do, absorb water. What's the job of cecum? Cecum has two jobs. Number one, it does fermentation. Okay? Number two, it helps in the production of some vitamins. Production of some vitamins, such as B12. Okay? It helps in the production of some vitamins, such as B12. Okay? And then, what other thing is this? The rectum is a temporary word now, temporary storage. Temporary storage of your fecal actions. And then the last guy there, anal canal. Why they call it canal? Because that's the passage the defecation will come out through from. You with me? The passage where the defecation will have to come out through from, and then before your WC takes it on. You get it? So now, one thing you must try to know here is this. Some people used to ask some question that, so then, why is it that some people used to defecate by like with not being conscious of the defecation they did? Or sometimes when somebody is having diarrhea. Now you see, when somebody have diarrhea, that's different. At that point, the system of the person is not in the normal function. Do you get? And that's why the person will be having stooling, stampeding, stooling, going to the toilet. Sometimes they might have defecated out of it before they get to the WC to put it out. That's different ballgame. But you should know that there's a point whereby this rectum will get filled up and the muscles there cannot retain your fecal action. Again, when it is filled up, the muscle becomes slack. Why is it slack? So that it can empty the feces. So in a nutshell, in summary, what do you need to know? Colon helps us to do the passage down by absorbing the water. Cecum does fermentation, also does the production of some vitamins. Rectum helps us to do what? Act as temporary storage. But there's a part, I said the appendix. Now note something. The appendix is at the right-hand junction of your body system. The appendix towards the right-hand side, not the left-hand side, the right-hand side. Now, it is closer to the large intestine. It's just staying by the side of it. So you can see it's on its own here, the appendix. And the appendix is what they call vestigial organ. When I was teaching you in evolution, I told you about it. I said the vestigial organ. What do they mean? Vestigia. This is what I'm saying. Vestigial organ. What a vestigial organ? Vestigial organ means functionless organ. They call it functionless. Organ that are functionless. They don't have any functions in the body system. An example is your word, appendix. Appendix doesn't have any function in your digestive system, but it can cause detriment to somebody. You've heard about appendicitis. That thing can kill if it gets to burst. Do you get? And it's just accumulation of subparticles into the body system. Accumulation of subparticles into the body system. Are we good? Now, let me make you understand some few things. Hold on. Now, where is the accumulation coming from? Food substances that you eat. Sweet, biscuit, seeds of some fruits, okay? when the body, when it's supposed to go directly into the stomach and it couldn't get to the stomach, there is a sac within the appendix where it is being stored. And when that thing gets filled up, then it needs to be what? To be removed. That's why sometimes some people used to actually do what they call appendicitis surgery. Just remove the appendix before it later causes detriment to somebody. Do you get? People tend to just remove it before it causes what? Detriment to somebody. And when you start seeing that your abdomen is having what? Too much of what? Now, pains, sometimes go for checkups. Just go do what they call abdominal scan. They scan that for you, and then they check your appendix if it's still in the right function. Okay? And you can also go check how weak your appendix is too. Do you get? Then you can decide if you want to just what? Remove it. But note, it doesn't have any what? Any function within the body what? System. Okay, it doesn't have any function within the body what? System. Okay, don't forget that. It doesn't have any function within the body system. It doesn't have any function within the GIT. Therefore, it means that it is a functionless organ. Do you understand me? It is a functionless organ, and it doesn't have a function with the GIT, but it can cause a disease known as appendicitis. Are we together? Good. So that's it. And then the anal canal, I told you, is just the passage of where the fecal action passes through down to the anus and outside to your WC suckaway. All right? So good. That ends that part for you. And then you talk about anus. I've told you what the anus job does. Now, you see all this story here that I gave you. All the story that I gave you here, we've talked about the pancreas. We talk about the liver. The liver, I told you last week, I said the liver doesn't have an enzyme. It has a what? A greenish substance called what? Called what, anybody? A greenish substance called what? Bile. Good. Bile. And then bile is stored where? Gallbladder. Gallbladder. Good. And then it does what? Emulsification of what? Fat. Good. Good. Emulsification of fat means what? Thank you. Good. So it shows you guys followed me. Good. So if you know that, then you should be able to go answer any good questions on the GIT of what? Of man. The GIT of mammal is the same thing. Any other mammal is the same thing with what? Of man. GIT, not GIG. GIT, I explained that last week. It's called gastrointestinal tract, which you popularly call alimentary what? Canal. You call it alimentary canal, but it's also called GIT, the gastrointestinal tract. That's what it's also called. Then people call it alimentary what? The canals. But however, if you are now to juxtapose it with the alimentary tract of birds, I'm going to lay something down to you. The alimentary tract of bird is that they don't have mouth. Their mouth has been modified to what? To beak. They have esophagus. You can say what I spelled, esophagus. You say esophagus. They got stomach, but their stomach is of two types. They got proventriculus, and they have what they call mechanical what? Stomach. Mechanical stomach, which is called the gizzard. Are we there? Mechanical stomach, which is called the what? The gizzard. Are we good? It's called the what? The gizzard. Then, immediately you have been able to answer this, then you must understand they have what they call crop. Crop is not their stomach. The difference between the The GIT of a man and the GIT of the birds is that the mouth has been modified to what? A beak. They have a structure called what? Crop. And they have two types of stomach, proventriculus and gizzard, or you call it mechanical what? Stomach. That is the difference. And then you call yours anus. They don't call theirs anus. They call it cloaca. The cloaca. And then they still have the small intestine. They got the what? The large intestine. We're good? So now, what do you want to know about the bird part? Very simple. I got beak. My beak doesn't have what? Teeth. So what do I use to break my food? That's why a bird do what they only masticate the food. They don't chew it. They don't break it down within their mouth. They tend to swallow it. And where do they store it? They store it in this place called what? Crop. Do you understand? Whenever they eat, they swallow the food, they store it in the crop. The crop is just temporary what? Now, storage. That is why sometimes chicken can go for days without eating, because they temporarily store food in their what? In their crop. Now, where do they do their mastication from? Where do they tend to what? Break down their food. That is the reason why they have two stomachs. Look at it. They have proventriculus. The proventriculus is their main stomach. The main stomach is the proventriculus. Proventriculus in their main word is their main stomach. Is their main word is their main stomach. And the mechanical stomach, which is the gizzard, is where they break down the what? The food. Because that gizzard has a gizzard stone. They call it either a gizzard stone or a mechanical what? Now, stone. And that stone helps to break down the food finally into smaller what? Particles. That is why you don't see those birds swallow what? The big seed. They don't do that. They eat small seed, grains of food, or they feed on worms. Are we together now? So you need to understand it. So if it is like this, we take it to the beak, the esophagus passes to the crop, it gets stored in the crop temporarily, then it doesn't go to the proventriculus, it goes down to the what? To the mechanical stomach called the gizzard. The gizzard is not chopped, it breaks it down to pieces. And the minute it breaks it down to pieces, it throws it down to where? To the proventriculus and starts his own main what now? The digestion. Are we good? Now, question begins to fly into your head. There was cloaca. Cloaca does the same job of the anus. But it's just that the difference between what the cloaca does is that chicken do not what now? Urinate. Let me ask you this. Does chicken urinate? Does birds urinate? Do they pass out urine? No. Why? Who has the good reason why birds don't pass out urine? I'm waiting. Now, somebody said no. Is there any other answer? You said, my question is, do they urinate? Yes or no? They do urinate, right? Good. Somebody say they do not urinate. Okay. It's together with their what? Good. Okay. Okay, good. So let's not merge the two. Do they urinate? Don't they urinate? It's together with their feces. Okay. But the reality is the truth. Does chicken urinate? 100%. If you say yes, you're correct. If you tend to say no, well, partially we will say you're correct, because they don't go to one place to stay and say, oh, I want to urinate. No, they don't do that. Do you get? They don't stay in one place to say, oh, I'm just bringing out urine only. No, they don't do that. We understand. So you must say no, partially. But the reality is the truth. The reality here is that does chicken urinate? Answer, yes. How do they do it? It's just that they don't do urea. I think I've said it in this class before. I said you need to understand the difference between urea and uric acid. Urea are for people, animals, or living things that don't need to conserve water. Did you get me? But uric acid are for animals that need to conserve water. Chickens don't take much of water all the time. So they learn to conserve their water. So instead of urea, they turn their own ammonia to uric acid. And so since they turn it to uric acid, they only pick their urine with the what? With the physics. That is why their urine is always wet and what? Watery. Do we get the point now? So if somebody tell you that do they urinate? The answer is yes. But will you say they have one specific organ they only bring out only the urine? No, it just mixed with the what? With the feces. Are we together? Good. So, but that comes out through the what? The cloaca. Okay, that comes out through the what? The cloaca. So, like I said, the difference between the GIT of a man and the GIT of the birds is because instead of mouth, what did we modify it to? Beak. Their stomach, is it the same thing? No, they got a two stomach, but it's still a simple stomach. The stomach that resembles the stomach of the mama is your proventriculus, the main one. Why the mechanical stomach is the what? Is the gizzard. Every other thing still follows the same process. Their small intestine, their large intestine follows the same what? Process. Then cloaca brings out both the what? The physics and the what? The urine together. And then with that, you got your energy. You cannot have your energy to channel on good things. Okay? Are we together? Any questions? Do I have a question? Do I have a question in the house? So far on this too? If you have any questions in your mouth, man, come on, say it out. Then one thing, let me just chip this for you in, is that whenever they are saying, when you hear the word post-mortem, okay, if they want to do post-mortem in chickens, this is where they go to. If your chicken dies without any reason, or if your chicken was poisoned, you can only know through here. And you only do the post-mortem by opening it, and then you go to where the crop is and check, what did my chicken feed on what? On last? Was it the grain I gave the chicken? Or somebody fed my chicken with something else? And then you can know from there, because the food will always still be what? Be there, raw, live. The same way they churn it, they earn it. That's the same way you will what? You see there. That's just a tip, though. So any question? Do you have any question? I guess I don't have a question.